Hello and welcome to Blockchain Gaming World, episode 182. I'm your host, John Jordan. Don't forget to check out my daily email. You can find that at gamestx.substack.com. In today's episode, I'm talking to Daly. Bo is the CEO of Bazooka Tango, a US developer, and just released its game Shardbound into open beta, and that's available via Steam or the Epic Game Store. So I played the game a couple of times during its closed beta, really enjoyed it, thought it was a very polished product. But as I sort of discussed with Bo, some of my issues were maybe as a deck building turn-based tactics game, how big is the audience for that sort of game? Obviously, Bo thinks it's pretty big. And also I was interested in the way that they haven't maybe sort of aggressively leaned into blockchain in the way that some blockchain games clearly do. I guess it's interesting that Bo is someone who's been in the games industry for a few decades. It's probably not a crypto native, as some of the people I interview are. And it was interesting to sort of talk to someone who's coming at it from a much more game sort of centric point of view. And actually, it was interesting that his view on why blockchain is interesting for Shardbound is much more about sort of community and also about interoperability. So something we don't often talk about these days, but is always there. And his sort of vision to have Shardbound, a Shardbound universe, and many games in that universe, and the NFTs that are in this first Shardbound game, sort of, you know, helping people to come and experience new games that hopefully will come out in future. We will wait and see. So don't forget to download Shardbound, Epic Game Store or Steam. And don't forget also to subscribe to the podcast. So every week we're putting out new episodes with people who are building blockchain games. I hope you enjoy it, and see you next time. Hello everybody, and welcome to the show. Very pleased I have Bo from Bazooka Tango on today. How's it going, Bo?
Doing great, John. Thanks for having me.
Good. We were just discussing how I can't ever remember Bazooka Tango, which is sort of weird because it's, I guess you chose the name of the company as it's very specific and sort of odd, but maybe, I don't know.
It's got a vibe. It's got a vibe. Wait till you hear the name of my previous company that I founded.
Yes, we'll do that. So always good to get a bit of history for the interviewee, and Bo, I think it's fair to say, has been around the game scene for a while. So what have you been up to in your career, and how did you end up at Bazooka Tango?
I mean, I've been in games for a long time. I started in the PS2 era with at Rockstar Games with Red Dead Revolver, Red Dead Redemption on Xbox 360 and PS3, and from there spent like a decade in MMOs, kind of, you know, at the advent of the WoW revolution, and then the move to free to play. Originally working with John Romero on his MMO that MMOs are hard to make.
That's another podcast, isn't it?
It's a big vision, it's a big dream, and it's something that's still very, very dear to my heart. So, I'm still kind of trying to chip away at that dream, but in much more manageable size pieces. So, anyway, spent about a decade there, worked across a bunch of different projects, learned a ton, and took that knowledge and that learning and plowed it into my first startup, which was a company called Super Mega Evil Corp. We built a game called Vainglory, which was all about bringing core gamers to mobile. And this is 10 years ago, where mobile was kind of viewed as not really serious as a gaming platform. Obviously, the world's changed a lot since then. And, felt very lucky to be able to kind of help catalyze that shift and to build just a great audience, or, great game with a great community. We had esports tournaments all over the world. I think we were the #1 mobile game on Twitch for a long time, and even popped up past Overwatch at some point in time. So it was, very exciting. Left that 5 years ago with my co-founder Stefan Captain Nito Sherman to build Bazooka Tango, and Shardbound is hopefully our next great feather in our cap, and should never talk about Rockstar again going forward, because I want to be known as the guy that brought the world Shardbound.
Good. It's a good part of history there. Covered a lot of bases. So let's go on to Shardbound. So this was, correct me if I'm wrong, this is not a game that you guys came up with. This was a game, at least in the Genesis, had been developed by another studio back in the sort of the Kickstarter, sort of 2015, 2016 era, I think. And that was sort of the genesis of the game, the sort of core, and it got some funding, and there's lots of games in general, but lots of Kickstarter games sort of go through a bit of a bumpy phase. And so, can you talk a little bit about how you guys sort of came across it and why you felt that? Because obviously, lots of game developers have lots of their own ideas, so it's sort of interesting to to see enough promise in someone else's idea to
Yeah,
take
yeah,
that on.
absolutely. And a lot of it just comes down to, I mean, everything that we do, right now with Shardbound really, is a testament to the incredible work that the Spirit Walk Games team put into this. Spirit Walk Games was a studio founded around the same time as we founded Super Evil. It was people that had also, that we had worked with at that MMO studio, Gazillion Entertainment. So we knew them really well. We were kind of startup brothers and on a journey together, and again, like, games is hard. Making games is hard, marketing games is hard, and raising money for games is extremely hard. And so we kept it close track of that game during Super Evil. Wanted to do something with them probably 10 years ago now. Again, sort of in the 8 years ago, in the sort of 2016, 2017 era. Couldn't quite make it happen then, but stayed close to the team. And like when the moment was right and we were sort of, we saw an opportunity. And I think for Shardbound, right, like the opportunity is super clear, right? Just in terms of finishing that game, breathing life into it. I think particularly with sort of the advent of digital collectibles, right? Like it fits so seamlessly and so kind of neatly into a world where, like, hey, like you want to be able to build decks, you want to be able to build a community, but you also don't want to get stuck with cards that you've, I don't know, pulled from a gacha or something that are useless because you hate the purple factor, right? Like, so having the ability to try something out, offload it if it's not your cup of tea, really craft your deck in the way that you want to make it. And this is getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, maybe into what is Shardbound, but yeah, I mean, it's again just a beautiful world, and I think for us, we view this as much more than just a collectible card tactics game, but something that we can breathe life into for decades, hopefully, with lots of different types of gameplay set in a world that is lush and vibrant and feels alive in a way that you don't see very often, I think.
So that's good. We've got this far without talking about blockchain. You sort of we've had digital collectibles, which is obviously often used as a sort of an alternative word for NFT. So you sort of you knew these guys, they were making the game, you liked it, the opportunity came to sort of take it over. At what point though does sort of digital collectibles / blockchain, NFTs, whatever, how does that sort of come into the mix? Because that is I guess, well, you answered the question. I guess you could still make the game without those things, but obviously they were a part of at least getting funding to make that game, and also I guess you feel that they add something that you wouldn't otherwise have with them. So can you unpick that sort of a little bit?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think the technology is nascent, right? It has not been used for its greatest purpose yet, and I don't even know that as game designers we've imagined yet what the ultimate final form is. So for me, in building a company, I think it's really important that you position yourself in on a frontier where you can sort of dream forever and find kind of unpicked over opportunities in the space. So I really love the promise of blockchain from solving player problems perspectives, right? We touched on this a bit with as salty as gamers can get about web3, they also let's not forget that they hate web2 gaming monetization as well, right? Gacha is not anyone's friend, but it is also sort of part of what you need to be able to do well to operate the studio and to survive, to make more great games. So we see blockchain as a great way to sort of support a community, to grow a community, and to give them the opportunity to really sort of customize and dial in what they want their game experience to be in a way that is sort of less, subject to the RNG gods. Beyond that, though, right? Again, and I mentioned sort of wanting to build more on Shardbound. I also mentioned my 10 years in MMOs. What I really think that the promise of the blockchain for us is going to be is interoperability. And so, my goal here is, probably much more, more ambitious than, just launching and operating a great CCG. I want to make a string of games in the Shardbound universe that knit together into something that's bigger than the sum of its parts, right? coming sort of really into startups and working with great people in games through the advent of the World of Warcraft era. I see World of Warcraft as sort of a proto metaverse. It was a game that people met and married, people, their husbands and wives through, because in part, not necessarily because they were into the exact same thing. Like maybe they were both in the same hardcore raiding guild, but maybe one of them was into the fishing and crafting and questing side of the game, and someone else was into the PvP battlegrounds or whatever, and they become like it creates a really rich social tapestry when you can bring together different types of gamers, make them socially interconnected, but also kind of economically interdependent, so that they have an excuse to go meet each other around what today would be the Discord server. It used to be the tavern in WoW, but we don't have to build this. As a startup founder, it's great because building a game like WoW, building all of that infrastructure, 20 years ago was really hard, right? It took hundreds of teams, hundreds of people, hundreds of millions of dollars of investment to get a game across the finish line that maybe no one really plays anyway. Yeah. So that's not a great value proposition as a founder to me, to be able to build a great game, find another good idea, test out maybe 10 different ideas, and if 3 of them hit, you've got the foundation for something really wonderful. And I think the blockchain will allow us to not have to build the auction house. It exists. Why we don't have to do that again? We don't have to manage fraud in the in the same way that Blizzard has to, right?
Yeah. Okay, we talked a little bit around the houses. Let's sort of, I guess, get on to a bit more to the detail of Shardbound. How would you describe Shardbound, and I guess why do you find that as a sort of compelling universe?
Yeah, so Shardbound is it's a collectible card game meets a tactics game. So think Hearthstone meets Final Fantasy Tactics or XCOM or your favorite, but definitely inspired by games like what Blizzard would make, what Square would make. It's a a bright world, lots of world building has gone into it. It's not necessarily all visible or kind of laid out in the form of the novel, but I think for players, they'll find that this is a world with 1,000 different stories. Every character that comes out has an interesting story, and is part of a culture. And that culture, you can see it. You can see there's art in this world. There's, yes, it's a post-apocalyptic doomscape, but it's very bright and gorgeously rendered. And again, like all credit to the incredible team, Josh Nailberg and folks at Spiritwalk Games for being able to kind of envision this for us and give us something to take across the line. But it's a game that really scratches a lot of itches for me personally as a gamer, right? Grew up playing a lot of Magic the Gathering around tables with friends, and I think that's a deeply social experience, and all gaming really is best when it is social, when you can play with your friends. So to be able to kind of tap that, scratch that itch, but also a huge fan of tactics games, right? So to be able to bring in those two elements when the game plays a lot like Magic the Gathering, or Hearthstone, you're getting mana each turn and trying to get your big playmaker cards out onto the board, but everything that you put out on the board is a movable piece. So it becomes very quickly a chess match, and you can win by knocking out the other team's commander. You can also win by capturing enough victory points by controlling different parts of the board at different moments in time, and just really outthinking and outplaying your opponent every step of the way. So, just very, very thankful to have the opportunity to bring the game across the finish line here. Again, big shout out to the Spiritwalk Games team. Also, big shout out to Immutable Games, who's been a wonderful partner for us for the last year and change throughout to give us all of the foundation that we need to be able to understand how to think about blockchain in the right way in particular. But also, right, these are people that came from Riot and places that make the kinds of games that we like to make as well. So, really, the team behind this is fantastic, and the world is great, and I think it's a game that everyone should play. It'll be your favorite game this year. You've
mentioned this, so it's a sort of has trading card elements, deck building elements, and tactics, and the people who really like those genres really like them. But could that be seen as a slightly niche genre? I mean, how can you think you can? Is it a mainstream genre? Can you bring people into that?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. We've got part of the reason that we're going to open beta now is that we've hit, we think, a
Mm.
critical mass of pre-registrations.
Okay.
We've got 100,000 people on the pre-reg list. I think it's always tricky when you're trying to combine two genres from a design perspective. There's a
Mm.
world where you look at it where you're just kind of targeting the overlap of the Venn diagram, but I think that every time that this has been done well, and a lot of the great games that we play now are Fortnite is a very strange mix of a couple of genres that you wouldn't think are particularly closely related. But I think the question is like, can you make it the union of those two sets, and can you
Mm.
give enough depth to the CCG player that the tactics is fun and novel, and can you bring the tactics player into the CCG world in a way that kind of appeals to both. I think it's possible, but again, I hope to make some other games in the Shardbound universe, such that maybe if this isn't the game for you, we still want to be able to build an ecosystem of titles that are going to
Yeah.
capture you, and maybe our it's our fifth game down the line that is the one that makes gets everyone super excited, and hopefully by having been with us from the early days of Shardbound here, all the way through that point in the future, that players will be bringing a lot of cool stuff with them. So when that game launches, it'll be super fun for everyone because we'll have more just more stuff to do and more reasons to interact.
Mm-hmm. Good. And how have you mentioned 100,000 sort of pre-registrations? You, I guess you, from my perspective, you've been a game that some blockchain games are sort of very crypto and very sort of lean into, we're giving away tokens, come in and play or tap on this button every day for 1,000 times, and you're definitely not on that. You've I guess you are a blockchain game. You're not hiding that
Right.
fact, but you're not sort of, to me, you're sort of very much like we're a game first with these elements. You're not leaning into it too much. I think the pre-registration people do get some rewards for doing that, but that's fairly standard in any gaming. So how do you feel? How do you feel like the blockchain gaming community, if it if there is one, do you feel you sort of connected with them, or do you actually not want to connect with them because they're all a bunch of degens and you don't want them?
No, it's certainly not that, right? Like, look, I think it's really important. I guess there are sort of a couple of bits here. One is there is some very exciting stuff for the Web3 community right now, right? So we mentioned everyone who early registered is going to get a unique card, kind of actually a set of cards. So they'll get, I believe, one rare, three epics, and one legendary card as pre-registration rewards. And admittedly, so you'll get those as NFTs in your immutable wallet if you've registered and connected that. If you don't have a wallet, we'll send you an email code to be able to redeem those. So we don't. It's not hard gated behind like, hey, this is DGen only. That said, there's a really exciting partnership that we have coming up here between now and end of November. We're working with Immutable and as part of their main quest program, which I'm sure
Yeah.
your listeners are familiar with. But yeah, players can basically, if they play and win 3 matches in Shardbound, they can earn 100 gems in that program, which is excited. Obviously, can convert that to IMX and so forth. But I think so. So want to make sure that we are giving those players what they want. But for us as a early, I mean, this game has been in development for a long time, and have not really felt like it was ready to launch worldwide just yet. And I think it's important as a business to know what's really happening in your game, right? And so the game has to come first. It has to be the thing that is the reason that all that other stuff is going to be interesting and exciting. I also think, right, our audience should be 100 million gamers, period, right? Like coming into the game. That's my dream for where Shardbound is a few years from now. And that needs to be all kinds of players, right? So I don't want to just focus on sort of one group's needs, while we try to build a game that can convert that 100 million players into Web3 enthusiasts over time. And ultimately, if you do have players coming into your beta that have incentives other than playing the game, you're just not going to understand if your game's working or not, right? You might get false confidence because all these players showed up, and certainly, I wouldn't want to be representing that to future investors or something of like, hey, this is an audience that is coming in and is going to spend 100 hours in this game or 1,000 hours in this game. We feel pretty confident that the audience that has been with us on this journey for the last, better part of a year, are folks that will come in and play hundreds of hours. Actually, a good chunk of them are playing 6 or 7 days a week already. So I think this is a game that can form a habit and deliver for everyone. But we're still learning about how the game's gonna work, how it's gonna perform, and just want to really know what we have before we start to try to monetize it or create other incentives for people.
Okay, and you sort of mentioned the blockchain elements sort of come in the cards. That's the current integration. I guess I would call that currently a fairly sort of light integration, and I guess that's one of the reasons that you're going through Epic Games Store, which is obviously generally fine for blockchain, and also you're going through Steam as well. So obviously Steam has tighter rules around how blockchain can be integrated, and I guess on the Steam side of it, there's basically no the blockchain integration sort of happens via web, the immutable wallet. So there's nothing in the sort of client that is dealing with crypto, which is how you get it through Steam. But I guess the other problem with Steam is that there are still people who like to go around and review bomb blockchain games. So how do you feel you're gonna you have, like, as far as I can tell, a good quality game that lots of Web2 gamers would like. It does have some NFTs in it, which some of those people won't like, and there's going to be a potential collision between those two things.
Yeah, I mean, we are who we are. What we can do is build a phenomenal game, and really center that experience for every player that we have. Look, every game has aspects of it that people like and aspects of it that people don't like. I don't think that this, that anything that we're doing here would be seen as disqualifying by any player. That spends any amount of time with the game, I'll say, right? Like, I think people's initial reactions are going to be what they're going to be. But I'm comfortable with that, right? And again, my last company, we put a MOBA on mobile in 2011, right? Which is like not something that players thought they wanted. But you can, you'll find your people. I'm confident that we'll find our people and that we'll be able to, grow and scale this game for years and years to come.
I guess from my limited understanding of Steam, though, it's sort of Steam wish lists, and that sort of element is quite a important way of sort of growing a game and sort of getting featured by Valve in their various when they have highlight games and stuff. That seems to be a very sort of important way of getting eyeballs in that platform in a way that you don't really get on app stores anymore, and maybe you don't even really get it on Epic Games Store anymore, but certainly Steam has that as a very sort of potential viral channel. And I guess one of the worries is blockchain games aren't going to get access to that because of, if they get review bombed, then obviously all their ratings are going to be low and blah blah blah.
Yeah, marketing games is really hard.
Yeah. Okay.
Always hard.
And in terms of this now being an open beta, what's the sort of progression that you sort of look to see? I mean, I don't know if there is definitions between what a sort of an early access open beta, blah blah. Is there something sort of specific in your head that you want to get to a certain stage of players, or some internal metrics, and then something happens and you put in more content to go to a sort of global launch, or you sort of mentioned monetization a little bit. How does the roadmap look like?
I think we're eager. I think we're eager to kind of move towards a global launch. Obviously, we're coming on the holidays, which is a very expensive time to be doing marketing, so we need to be thoughtful about timing there. But I will say that this game is more worldwide launch ready than any game that I think I've seen, been in, kind of getting into open beta. We've taken a lot of time, even just over the last couple of months, from kind of our last closed beta play test, to just build out the tools that we need to be able to live operate the game going forward. So a lot of stuff that probably most teams would build when they're already in open beta and looking to scale. To me at this point, right, I think we just want some validation that we can begin to kind of grow an audience, and that internally our team is set up and resourced to be able to support this game in the way that players deserve for the long haul. I think once we kind of get those signals, I think we're pretty eager to push towards a worldwide launch. We'll see how things go now that we are right. It's a proper game where you can access it. We can actually test marketing against it. We can test in-game economy. I do expect that the game will shift a lot still. Right. It is beta, so we are reserving the right to rebalance cards and do different things to just make sure that player experience is good. But I think the bones are fantastic, and from here it's just a little tuning and tweaking around the edges, and that to me is sort of what signifies when you're really ready for open beta. It's not it will be, I think, a lot massaging from here on out, but you should feel comfortable playing the game. What you learned today is probably not going to be completely overturned, in terms of strategy and deck building and so forth.
Mm-hmm. And you talked a bit about monetization. How do you, not just on the blockchain side, how do you see monetization working? Is it sort of battle passes, gacha, all of the above?
Yeah, all of the above. I mean, it's it'll present as largely as a great kind of AAA-ish game. Obviously, we're a very small studio for AAA ambition, but I think everything that you would expect to see in a pretty mature product in terms of some gacha, but hopefully not too much. Some direct purchase with different in-game currencies to allow you to try to chase the content, rotating shop of with different offers. Obviously, we have hundreds of 100 plus cards to kind of go through, try to chase down. So players will be rewarded for paying attention, logging in every day, and kind of collecting both in-game and hard currency to spend on those cards. And then opportunity down the line to take those cards as NFTs and go out and buy them on third party trading sites.
And do you think trading on those sort of external sites marketplaces will be a sort of a key part of that? Is the game sort of designed for that to be a key part, or is that, do you think, more to do with sort of how particular players want to be in terms of getting specific decks or specific characters in there, and not want to go through gachas? And if you cut, for me, I found in other games, there's gachas, and then it's just like, I just can't be bothered to just go to the marketplace and buy it. I mean, but that may be an educational sort of thing for players.
Sorry, the last thing you said there, the educational thing.
Yeah, I mean, did you think so? How much of the game is sort of designed for NFT sort of trading, and how much of it will be sort of players will sort of get educated that there is this other option, as opposed to just sort of sitting in the sort of the Web2?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately we think we have a little bit of a journey ahead of us, right? To educate players about why Web3 is cool and how this is going to interconnect with different games in our ecosystem going forward. So it's important that you not scare everyone away on day one, particularly if you're coming to this game having never touched anything on the blockchain, right? So I think we do have some work to do, and we hope to be the gateway company that brings players into Web3 in a meaningful way. So the game does need to hang together as a Web2 experience for long enough to bring players across the chasm. But yeah, I mean, the Web3 bit is we think very carefully about why that should be interesting to players. Obviously the trading, collecting, deck building piece is meaningful and significant, right? There's nothing worse than getting stuck wanting one particular card for an upgrade and having it be buried deep in a loot box that you're never going to pull, right? That's not a great experience. And so I think it really solves I think Web3 really solves a lot of problems for this kind of a genre and the kind of upgrade and progression systems that we're building for it. So our hope is that this creates kind of a nice symbiotic flywheel where players want to do both, right? And I don't think it's healthy also for players to just be able to kind of go to, go sweep the floor on a bunch of NFTs and burn those into the game and never have to play the game and have all this high level content, right? So we want to make sure that players that are out in the Web3 ecosystem have a reason to come in and actually engage with the community and play games and get to fall in love with Shardbound as a game and not just a asset class, of course, right? Because that's how we think of it, right? It's a game. At the same time, we want to make sure that we are starting to paint the picture for the hundreds of millions, billions of gamers out there that maybe don't trust Web3 and don't see the point. We want to show them the point.
Good. It's a good point on which to end the podcast, I think. Thank you very much for your time, Bo.
All right. Thanks so much, John.
And thanks to you guys for watching, listening. Obviously, your homework is to head off to the Epic Games Store or Steam and download Shardbound. And if you're on Steam in particular, you can give it a nice review to maybe counteract some of the other people who won't be. But don't forget, every week we are talking to people who are building out this new type of making games and building communities and all that sort of good stuff. So don't miss out. Do subscribe, and we'll see you next time.